Welcome everyone to our fourth webinar series today, and it is really exciting because today we're actually talking about you as the change leader, you as the change expert, and what it is that you need to do to build your capability and your capacity to be able to lead change on behalf of your organisation. What we often find is that organisations will go to their content experts to lead the change process. And so I dare say those of you that are listening today have a significant amount of skills, expertise and knowledge when it comes to the NDIS, the requirements associated with transitioning to the NDIS. You will have been to a range of webinars, you will have attended conferences, you will have immersed yourself in content knowledge that's going to best position you as a content expert. And as a result of all of that investment, your organisation is now looking to you to lead change around NDIS. And what we often find is the skills of a content expert are in fact quite different to the skills required to be a catalyst for change, to lead change. And in the book we talk about kind of the three tiers that you need to be a leader of change. We talk about being a facilitator of change, so being able to facilitate the change process on behalf of others. We talk about the coaching associated with change, being able to coach individuals and people through a change process, because we know that nothing changes unless behaviour changes. And the third part is that notion of leading change and being an agent of change, that you're able to do both the facilitation and the coaching concurrently to bring and to support people throughout a change journey. And that is quite different to having content expertise. In fact, as a change leader, what you're looking to do is to tap into the content expertise that exists within your organisation, that might exist outside of your organisation, with partner organisations or other entities and individuals. And what we're looking to do is create a network where you actually can access great content, but not necessarily need to have it yourself. Within the playbook, we have some rules at the start of the playbook, and they're the 8 rules that we talk about in relation to instigating change and leading change. And whilst they're not hard and fast rules, and by no means are they the only rules that you need to apply to a change process, the one I think that is quite important here is actually that ability to not judge, go in with a really open mind when leading change, and be curious. Be curious and courageous. Ask the really tricky questions, and sometimes that's quite difficult for a content expert to do. And we find that it's difficult to be curious and not to have pre-designed ideas or judgments or assumptions come through if we are leading change, particularly when we are a content expert. So if you're a content expert, what you need to do when being asked to lead change is kind of hold your content expertise lightly. And in some instances, maybe just pop them to the side whilst you're facilitating the change process. And then when it comes to those key decision-making points, that's when you can bring your expertise back in. Similarly, you can influence and affect conversations by your content expertise. So if you think there are particular areas where people aren't exploring the change, you can bring those things in. And so today we are going to talk about that final aspect of the framework, which is translation. And translation to me means taking the theory that is in the playbook, so taking the theory of change, the process of change, and being able to learn more with each opportunity you use to deploy change and some of the tools from within the playbook. It's your opportunity to really embed becoming a change expert and being a really great change leader for your organisation. So we talk about 3 different ways that we can take the theory and start to use it in practical application. And we don't want to wait until we've been tapped on the shoulder and asked to lead change. before we start using some of the tools and the templates within the playbook. We don't want to wait until we're asked to lead change for that to be the first change effort that we're leading on behalf of an organisation. So what we want to do is there's 3 opportunities, I think, that exist that we need to really capitalise on if we are a leader of change and we're looking to invest in building our own capability around change. And those 3 opportunities are micro-learning opportunities, applied learning opportunities, and experiential learning opportunities. So by micro opportunities, what we mean is where there are opportunities within your day-to-day work. So when you're not leading a change process, these opportunities to enhance and refine some of the critical skills of facilitation and coaching that you need to become a great change leader. And so facilitation skills can range from anything from how you curate information, through to how you engage with others, through to how you capture information when people are reporting out in a session, to how information is presented. And I think there's lots of opportunities in the workplace, day in, day out, for you to practice some of these skills. And so it could be that you need to practice capturing information when people are all reporting out concurrently. So you've had them doing an activity and now it's time for them to report back on their findings, their insights from that activity. And so you're standing there poised at the whiteboard ready to start to take those notes. And you don't want to be in that situation and go, actually, I don't know how to best capture information that's being shared. So I often would say people, a micro learning opportunity would be to capture information in a team meeting. So, of course, there may be someone that's taking notes and taking minutes of the meeting, but there's nothing to stop you from picking one of the items on the agenda and deciding to use that as almost a report out opportunity where different people are contributing to that agenda item and you're capturing their contributions. That's going to further enhance and refine your skills. What we find is if you have a newly acquired skill or you've just learned how to use a template, just been taught a process, if you don't in fact use that tool, that skill, that template, that process within the next 24 to 36 hours, anywhere between 50 to 75% of what you've acquired in terms of the new skill, new learning, new knowledge, in fact is gone, is lost. And this is why I think it's really important to deploy and intentionally plan micro-learning opportunities throughout your day. It might be that you do one thing each day for a week. You pick a theme and go, right, any opportunity I get to capture where multiple people are talking, I'm going to do that. So you set a target for the week and you say, right, these are going to be my micro-learning opportunities. The next level of learning is applied learning. And applied learning is where you might take one of the templates that's used. So for example, the client journey map. You might take the client journey map and apply it to a piece of work that you're doing. So you're not necessarily leading the change process at this point in time, but you see an opportunity where you can take one of the tools from the playbook and in fact use it to help do a piece of work that you've been asked to do better or to think differently about it. So it's actually practicing the use of the tools, working out what goes in what section, what kind of questions you might ask to elicit responses from people. It could be that you're using it in a different context in relation to the change you're being asked to lead. So an example might be you may be leading some NDIS transition activities, but you also might be responsible for some internal process improvement within your organisation. You may choose to use these templates to help that internal business improvement process. So it's taking different tools at different points in time. And as I said, the playbook is not comprehensive. There are other tools, and in our last webinar we spoke about empathy maps. That's an additional tool that can be inserted into the playbook that you could use both in isolation but also as part of the change process that you're leading. So applied learning is taking larger sections or larger learning skills, processes and applying them in another context. So not applying them to the change that you're leading, but applying them in a different context and potentially using them in a much more refined and contained way. The last learning opportunity that I want to talk about is, in fact, so we've spoken about micro, applied, and now the experiential learning opportunity. The experiential learning opportunity is when you're taking your micro learnings, taking your applied learnings, and you're in fact now in the situation where you're leading change. And every opportunity is a learning opportunity. So whilst you're leading the change process, whilst you're going through each step and using each of the tools and templates, there's now an opportunity for you to pause and reflect on how well you deployed those tools, how engaged were people in the process, how well did you communicate what needed to be done to the people participating in the change process, and were they easily able to engage with the work that you needed them to do, but also were you able to generate the outputs that you needed from doing that process to take you into the next step. And so this is where you're going through a process of deploying the tools, you're actually using the tools, you're using your skills, you're using your facilitation skills, you're using your coaching skills in a live change project, but you're also concurrently capturing where there's opportunity for improvement around the deployment of those tools, around where there's opportunity for you to improve your facilitation skills, where there's opportunity for you to improve your coaching skills. Because it's through those feedback loops that the next change process that you're leading will in fact get better and better. And I know myself, when I'm facilitating and leading change and working with organisations, the tools that are in the playbook are the tools that I use, but sometimes I don't use them in the same way. The context might be different. The individuals that I'm working with may not respond in the same way as another group of individuals. And so I have to refine my techniques. I have to look at ways in which I can ensure that we're getting the outputs that we need so that we're continually progressing on that change journey. And I think sometimes what happens is we learn one way of doing it and we just keep on marching that one way out. I think this is very much so about, we talk about continuous quality improvement. There is continuous quality improvement in your own skills and your own capability to deploy change. I think investing in that is a really smart move, not only for yourself, but also for your organisation, because it will help in other contexts, it'll help in other situations and other parts of your work when you're not in fact leading a change process. So if we just go back over the key things that I really want you to hear is, I want you to intentionally plan your learning opportunities. So often organisations will invest in training, learning and development, and when we go back into the workplace to use those skills, we don't intentionally plan when and how those skills will be used. So if you are reading through the playbook and you're looking at the tools and you're looking at the templates within there and you're looking at the processes and the theory, I would encourage you to then work out, when are you going to use those tools? How are you going to use them? Plan into your diary micro learning opportunities. Now, a micro learning opportunity should not take longer than 10 minutes. It really is this short, fast injection of a skill, broken right down, going, right, I'm just going to focus on this component or this element. So really hone in, but it is about the intentionality to, in fact, continue to build your capability to lead change and become a catalyst for change in your organisation. And given, as we heard from Tim at the start, the amount of reform that's occurring, and I don't think that whilst NDIS has been rolled out, I don't think we're at the end of transitioning through NDIS. I think there will be continued change, tweaking, reform that goes on as this program starts to become more embedded. And so that will require you to continually do change. And if you're going to continually be doing change, you need to ensure that your change capabilities, those facilitation capabilities, those coaching capabilities are continuing to be invested in, and that you're looking for every opportunity to become and be the best change catalyst that you can be. So plan micro-learning opportunities, plan applied learning opportunities. That may involve you volunteering to do some work in another team, in another area, in another section, so that you get better at using the tools. You become more familiar with those tools and apply them in different settings, different contexts, in different programs, with different people. Then the big one, which is the experiential learning opportunity, which is having the full experience of leading change and learning from that experience. So often we don't stop to reflect on what we have learned and how we've learned things, and I think there's a real opportunity here for us to stop and reflect through an experiential opportunity to work out what it is that we can be doing and how we can be doing it better. With that said, I'm really excited. I know at the start Tim said that we would be speaking to Christy Ward, an education expert, but Christy's been called away this morning, so I in fact have been able to find a last minute replacement, but I'm extremely excited about the last minute replacement that we've got, because we're about to speak to a lady called Kim Henry, who is a change expert and business transformation specialist, and has been working in this area of change for over 20 years, working within teams, working with individuals, but most importantly, working across multiple parts of large businesses to help them, in fact, change and go through the process. And I think, as I said, I'm really excited to be able to speak with Kim today and do some question and answers about what she thinks the critical skills are for you guys about to embark and lead a change process. What are some of the things that, the tricks of the trade, where you need to keep your eyes open and be curious, and what are the opportunities for learning. So with that, I would really love to introduce Kim Henry, and I will, hopefully she's all on.
Hello, Claire.
Wait one moment.
Hello, Claire. Can you hear me?
I can only just hear you now. Are you able to maybe just turn your volume up a little bit?
I'm right at the top of the volume.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you with us. And as I said at the start, I would really love to hear from you in relation to what you think some of the critical skills are for change leaders. So these individuals that have been tapped on the shoulder and have been asked to lead NDIS transition on behalf of their organisation. What would you say are some of the critical skills that they need to acquire or need to really focus on so that they can be the best change expert?
Yeah, look, it's a really great question. I think the most important one for me is never stop asking questions. So that curiosity about how something works, what the impact is, what it means to individuals, the constant questioning is absolutely critical to be an effective change leader.
And in the playbook, we talk about the different types of questions that you can ask. Exploratory questions, opening questions, experiential questions, and then, honing in on some of those closing questions. When you're leading or first starting a change process, what are some of your favourite questions, or what are the things that get the process rolling and get people engaged right from the start. Because I think sometimes there's a nervousness around change that people might come into the room with. And so I'm wondering what are some of those things that you do or you would suggest need to be done to get people feeling comfortable right from the start so that they don't see the questions that you're asking as almost prying or querying what they're doing or raising kind of concerns.
Yes, look, there's certainly nothing worse than an interrogation to start off a project. I think the thing I have found most successful is asking people how they're feeling about a potential change. What are they excited about? What are they nervous about? What are some of the questions that they hope nobody asks them? That tends to get you really quickly to the heart of what's driving them. And it also helps you build a rapport really quickly with the person that you're working with.
And so, how have you found it? Because I know that you've led change within an organisation where you've also been an employee in that organisation.
Mhm.
How do you manage that tension? Because I think sometimes it can be hard sometimes it's easier, I know, as an external person coming in, I can probe or pry a little more into questions and I can push a little harder, I think, sometimes. And I'm just wondering, how is it when you're an employee of an organisation and being asked to lead change, the skills that you might need there to manage that balance between going back to being an employee as well as leading a change process that could be fairly disruptive within the organisation?
Yeah, look, that can be a tricky balance to achieve. I think what I've found really works well is to talk about the intent behind what you're doing. So it's almost setting the environment for people to be listening in a different way to who you are as you're being a change leader, as opposed to who you are if you were an employee. I think the other thing that's really critical is making sure that you've got early engagement with your senior stakeholders. They can make sure that the environment's right for you to do your best and to be successful.
Yeah. And in terms of some of I spoke just before about kind of facilitating the process as well as coaching people through the process. Do you have any advice about what helps make you a good facilitator? What does a good facilitator look like when leading a change process?
I think one of the most important skills for a facilitator is to listen more than they talk. That seems a bit counterintuitive, but really your job is to be the catalyst for a conversation in the room. And sometimes that's best served by you not talking. So you set the environment, you ask the questions that get the conversations going, and then you listen and you ask questions that further the conversation and further the understanding in the room.
And how do you balance, and I always find this interesting, your own personal bias that you might have. So as you're listening to what people are saying and you're capturing that information to use in the next part of the process, how do you kind of quieten down your own bias? So if someone is saying something and you're going, oh, I don't think that's going to work, or oh, I've heard that before. Oh, I know that that's not true because I've seen the data somewhere else. How do you quieten any biases that you might have or any assumptions that you may be coming into the room with when leading change?
Oh, I think as a change leader, particularly one that works within an organisation that they're very familiar with, that's actually one of the most difficult things to do. I know you spoke earlier about making sure that you challenge your assumptions, and that's difficult if you're a content expert who's in a role of being a change leader. I think for me, the easiest way to do it is to make sure that you go in with really clear measures of success. with whoever your customer is in your organization. So it becomes less about what you want and more about what they want, which is of course how it should be. So clear measures of success coming in. I think the other question that I found quite useful in my career is, tell me a little bit more about that. So it gives you time to quieten down your own bias, and it gives the person who's speaking with you the opportunity of exploring their idea more. And it could just be that their idea is the winner.
I love that question. Tell me a little bit more about that. I think that is that's definitely one that everyone listening to this webinar needs to write down, because